Hello, welcome back to Krachwerke. And while I was doing this kind of mixing the whole track from start to finish, I set up this track to show you how to separate out your MIDI drums, separate each drum out so that you can mix it and drum bus it properly within your DAW. I'm using Reaper, so this is all kind of Reaper based, but it was a very quick video just to show you how to do the separation out, and that you then have total drum mixing controls over each separate tracks, like you would have as if you recorded the drum kit properly. So because I have this already set up, I thought to myself, well, why don't we do a very quick basic mixing drums video, and I'll do it the way I like to do it. Some of the things I do are from good examples, but I don't like to put stuff out as a rule, if you know what I mean. I don't like to play the YouTube game where this is how you do it and only like that. So I'm going to show you how I do it and what makes me happy. I like drums to be dynamic. I like them to be punchy. I like them to stand out. I like the drummer also to play something musical, so not just a straight beat. But for this example, we're just going to try and worry about mixing the drums. So the first thing, as you'll see on the screen, you've got when you mic up a drum kit, you want a microphone on the beater, usually an SM57 or something, for some attack. You want one on the back for the bass response. You want a snare to be mic'd. I like to mic it with 3 mics. That means bottom, top, and a dynamic on the top. And because the dynamic picks up a slightly harder transient, and it also picks up a little bit of the ringing and some of the other sounds of the snare. Fair enough, it also picks up a lot more bleed from the other from the rest of the kit, but that's, I think what you're getting from the snare extra is better. In this case, I have bass in, bass out, snare top and bottom. I like to have the hi-hat separated out. I like to have a mic on the ride. I like to have a mic on each tom, obviously, but I also like to have the floor tom separated out. Unfortunately, I don't have that here. I'd like to have the overheads on a nice wide stereo image, so I don't like the XY setup. We have here also a room stereo and a room mono. I don't like applying reverb to drums. I prefer to blend in room mics for the reverb sound. To me, it sounds cleaner and more believable. I never go for, like, for example, the gunshot or a cannon shot kind of snares. And then we have one room mono mic, which we can heavily compress to put some punch in. So we'll start with the bass drum. So let's solo this one out. What I always like to do is I'd like to take get the levels nice and sharp. That means I compress first, then EQ, and then I might compress a bit more. So let's compress. Let's just use stock compressor. We'll go for the hard rock kick. Now, I don't mind using presets as long as you're happy to amend them afterwards. Now, this kick sounds good because it actually came from Easy Drummer. This is not a recorded drum. So this is all just for show and tell purposes. This sounds pretty good. We've got a bit of compression happening here. I'm happy with that. Might make the low pass a bit higher. So now we can EQ it. What I like to do with the bass drum, because I know what I'm going to do with the bass guitar, is I'm going to make a peak on 50 and 60. right? And the reason I do that, I want some of this still here, so I'm going to peak that up. Take out the mids a little bit, make a nice peak here again. Get it nice and sharp. And I will do pretty much the same on both front and back. The reason we've got this peak here is because when it comes to the bass guitar, I want the bass to sit beyond both sides of the 50. So I'm going to notch out the 50 Hertz on the bass guitar. So that's why I'm picking this here, so that the two are separated out without having to employ any parallel compression, not parallel compression, but side chaining and stuff like that. Oops, so there we go. And now I can blend these two to taste. Now notice I'm already compressing some, so I've not got any compression going on my drum bus just yet. I want to make sure that the levels are good before I do any of that. Again, we're going to compress the snare coming in. Compressing the snare a bit harder because we need to keep some of. Now if you look here, I like to have the accent a bit lower, just around 100, to give it a bit more body. And we can basically do the same for both top and bottom. Again, we just mix to taste. Okay. The hi-hats, actually we're going to go to the overheads first. We're going to compress these guys hard. And the reason we compress them hard is because we can actually roll off the mix between the compression and the original signal. If we check out the preset on the cymbals, you'll notice this dip here, which is fine, but to me this is too high. And then I want a spike again at the 100 to help the snare come out. See, with that 100 here, we help the snare have a little bit of body. You can take some of these annoying frequencies out. Bring the high end up a bit, but then drop it after. I'm happy with that, and we can literally copy these over to both the hi-hat and the ride. The only difference is we're going to take the hi-hat and but all the way to the left, and the right all the way to the right, because these are just going to be accents. Now you can hear that hi-hat sounds a bit awful. So what we can do with this guy is we can give it some reverb. Where's my reverb that I like to use? Gonna give it a lot of reverb. That's because I like the hi-hat to be kind of like just there. I don't like it to be all harsh. The ride is going to be a little bit more stabby. As you can hear the ride, but this is just additional so that you can punch it up a little bit in the mix. Right, happy with that. The toms are a bit of a pain because the toms are not separated out, so I'm gonna again compress them hard. See, I find that the wrong frequency. I would rather have that out. Give it a bit of low end around about here. Take some of the mids out and get the punch around about the 4K mark. Right, so there you go. Now we're going to take the room stereos. And then we take the mono room and compress the absolute crap out of it. kind of happy with that, and now we can have an overall drum bus. And this is where I like to go back to my favorite friend, Tokyo Dawn's Kotelnikov, and we'll go for the drum. I don't actually go for the drum bus. I usually go for the mastering one. And give it a bit of a slightly higher. There we go. You hear how it's a bit overcompressed, so what I do then is this following. I change the mix. Looks like there's a weird sound that came in here, right here on the toms. So what we can do with that, don't know how that happened, but it's not the end of the world. So what we'll do is we'll cut it. Right. So all I've added is, in the end, is I've added some bus compression, but mixed it out halfway. Some reverb, but only a little bit, and then a limiter. The limiter is absolutely optional. If it was in the mix, you'd probably take that out and you would make some other decisions. So this is basically very quickly the rough kind of EQ settings and compression settings, separating it out. and doing a rough but good sounding drum mix. Thank you very much.